Okay, so before we get started, I was having some issues with the video. The audio quality suffered. You notice in the first half of the video, it had a real bad echo. Got that resolved, and then I started having video issues. Um, my video camera started just recording like crap. The video started getting real choppy. But I think I've gotten most of those issues resolved. Um, I'm still experiencing a little bit of choppiness in my video recording. I'm still trying to pinpoint what that issue is. But with that being said, I give you guys fair warning, but I'm sure you'll still enjoy the video either way it goes. Alright, so I've been playing around with this for the last several months, just doing some testing with it and really seeing what all can be done. This used to be, or not used to be, still is, I guess, a Datto Alto 2. Used to be a backup appliance, and an old client was, well, they had upgraded, and this one had been replaced with the newer models and went ahead with the upgrade, but the case was all busted and cracked and falling apart. So I just kind of took it and did away with the case itself because it wasn't really holding together, wasn't protecting anything, was really getting more in the way. So with that being said, this thing has an i3 in it, a fifth generation i3. I think it's running at 2.1 gigahertz, more or less. It does have two physical cores with hyperthreading. That's 4 threads. Right now, I've only got a single stick of DDR3 memory. That's 8 gigs, running at 1600 megahertz, I believe, which is for what I plan on doing with this thing going forward. Is 8 gigs will be plenty for it. As for everything else, right now I have a 128 gig M.2 drive. Along with the case, the mounting bracket for this kind of got destroyed. So right now I just have a little twist tie around it. And around the back, under this other hard drive, I have the twist tie going through a couple holes through the motherboard that were used for screws. I just had it twist tied in the back to help hold it down. But this other drive in the back, this is a 250 gig solid state drive. Let's see, the CMOS battery on it is dead, so it's not retaining any of my changes I've made to the BIOS. I do have a new one on order. Actually, I have 10 of them on order. I found a batch of 10 for, I think, $7-8. So that should be here in a few days. I'll be able to get that swapped out and make some permanent changes to BIOS. Let's see, as far as the ports go. So my ultimate plan for this is to load server 2022 on here and use it as my DHCP and DNS server. I'm also going to get Windows deployment services installed and configured on here so I can do a network boot to all these PCs I'm testing and load the operating system across the network, which is why I have this secondary 250 gig drive on here in order for me to hold all the images. This first M.2 drive will be primarily just for the operating system. As far as the ports go, what made me decide to actually use this hunk of junk was the dual ports on here. For Windows deployment services, this will give me, each of these are 1 gig, so that'll give me 2 gigs worth of throughput. So I shouldn't be bogged down by, the bandwidth there. As far as the other ports, you've got your power there, display port, HDMI. Of course, I've mentioned the dual gigabit network ports. You have 2 USB 3 ports, USB 2.0 port. And around what used to be the front side is another 2 USB 3.0 ports. Then the power button is right here. Now, I apologize for my voice. I've had a little going through some sinus issues, got my voice out a little rough. But nevertheless, I previously had Windows 10 on here, and I had the Wi-Fi / Bluetooth adapter here. And of course, I got the antennas here. I just got taped down. With me testing server 2022, it does not have. I cannot find any drivers
to support this card for Server 2022. I've been trying to decide whether to swap it out or just remove it completely. But considering this is going to be, a server, and I'm not actually going to be using it as a desktop, I really don't need this or the antennas. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this, get the antennas removed. I'll utilize the card antennas on something else, because I've got another project I'm working on. That's kind of in the same situation. It was something I picked up that the case was all busted from, or busted up on. But I've got Server 2022 being written to a USB drive now, so I can reload that on here. But while that's being written, I'm going to go ahead and get these antennas removed, this Wi-Fi card removed, and I've got some cardboard here. I'm going to go ahead and make just like a little makeshift case for it. Just basically to put it on the bottom, I'll kind of fold the edges down, prop it up some, just to give it a little bit of protection. I don't want to necessarily lay this directly on the table or where I'm putting it. It's going to be sitting on metal, so I wanted some barrier there to keep it from shorting out. But I'm going to go ahead and get this cardboard cup, measure it out. I have to figure out a way to get it fastened, but anyway, I'm going to work on that now, go ahead and get that card removed. By the time I'm done with that, that USB drive will be done, and we'll be able to get Server 2022 installed and configured on here. Alright, so this is pretty much what I've got. I basically cut out a square piece of cardboard, cut out like an extra inch of overhang, and basically turn those down to let it sit up a little higher, keep it from shortening itself out on anything. And I did leave the CPU cooler fan combo on top so it can get adequate airflow. Now I may come back later on and try to build this up a little bit and figure out how to bring something over top of it. But for now, I think this will hold just fine. Alright, so from here, I'm going to go ahead and get a network connection on there. if I turn it the right way. I'm gonna get my monitor plugged in. Let's see, my mouse and keyboard, USB or wireless. Alright, now I'm gonna check on that USB drive to see if it's finished writing, and then we can load the operating system on there. Alright. Let's see, get this thing plugged in. Power on. Well, hell, if I plug in the power. Alright, let's see if I can remember the boot key here. Yep, that was it. F8 to get to the boot menu. Almost couldn't find my mouse. Alright. Hopefully it sees both drives. It should. Alright, good deal. Both drives are visible. Okay, so it's reporting my M.2 drive at 119.2 gig. My secondary SSD is 232.9 gig. So we will install the operating system on the 119 gig drive of the M.2. Then once it's loaded, I will get that secondary drive formatted. And we'll still need to go through and get the updates applied. And then also the DNS, DHCP, and WDS services installed and configured. Alright, so my new batteries came in a day earlier than what I had expected. So I've gone ahead and replaced this. I had already recorded this once, but the audio was totally messed up, so I'm having to redo this little part. But I've already got the new battery installed. The old battery is, well, I don't know what to do with the old battery now. Oh, there it is. So there's the old battery. The new batteries have the double-sided tape on it, so I've got it permanently fixed there to the daughter card. This daughter card is basically the internal speaker and power button. So this is just a standard CR2032, basically PC battery. It just has these adapters on it for these smaller components, and the connector for this is right here beside the M.2 drive. It's a little tiny thing. Took me a while to get that in there because it's so small, and I can't really get in there too easily without removing that hard drive, and I didn't really feel like doing that. But for right now, I've gone ahead and gotten this thing shut down, and in the process of swapping that battery, I realized that some of the changes that I will be making in BIOS.
now that I have this new battery, now that you'll save those changes, one of those changes is switching it from booting into BIOS, booting from BIOS, and I'm going to switch that over to UEFI booting, since this thing is new enough to support that newer boot mode. Which, once I do that, since I previously installed Windows Server 2022 in legacy mode, basically BIOS mode, once I switch over to UEFI, it will render that unbootable. So I didn't really get far into the configurations. I just got the OS installed and the updates applied, really. So it's not going to be too much effort to get that reinstalled. But let me switch over to my screen recording so you guys can have a clearer picture of the screen of the monitor, so you guys can see what I'm doing. Be back in just a second. Okay, so I've gotten everything in BIOS set to how I want it to be set. I've got Windows Server 2022 installed. I've got Active Directory, DHCP, DNS, and Windows Deployment Services installed, and I've got all those configured. I've got static IP addresses on both the network interfaces. I was originally going to show the setup process of everything in this video, but I decided against that. I decided to skip over it because there was some information there I just didn't want out in the public. So I just decided to skip over it. Of course, there's hundreds of tutorials on how to get those things set up. And of course, if you guys have any questions for me, feel free to drop a question in the comments, and I will answer them as soon as I can. Let's get logged in here, and I'll show you guys a couple things, and then we will get it hooked into my network switches. I'll get DHCP turned off on my router and enabled on here. And like I said, all that's already configured. It just needs to be enabled. Alright, so as you guys can see, the CPU spiked right now just because it's still in the process of booting up and getting everything loaded. That will normalize out here shortly. And the memory is, it's only using 2 of 8, so I think we'll be good there. And of course, like I said, I've got static IPs on both the network interfaces, and it is actively load balancing that. But what I do want to do is make a quick little copy test just to check the bandwidth. Should pick something a little smaller. There we go. Yeah, let me pick something a little smaller. Let's see. I'll copy one of my videos over. Yep, looks like it's using almost the 2 gigs fully. And you can see here on the interfaces that it is actively load balancing. So that's good. Looks like it's utilizing everything as it should. And the CPU has leveled out, so it's, jumps. Normally it jumps anywhere from, 0 to, 10% just sitting on idling. Let's see. I've got Active Directory configured, DHCP, DNS, and WDS, or Windows Deployment Services. I'll get those booted up. Alright, so you can see my DNS here running. Go ahead and close that. I've got DHCP configured like I stated, but I just got the scope disabled for right now until I could get that turned off on my router. I didn't want anything conflicting with each other. Wrong one. Alright, so for Windows Deployment Services. Alright, so right now my drive, my main 120 gig M.2 Drive, it's only using about 20 gigs for the operating system. Now my secondary solid state drive, which is 232 gigs, all I have on it are the images for deployment services. I'm only using, as you can see, about 31 gigs there. For those familiar with WDS, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I've got my boot image loaded. I don't have a capture image yet, but this boot image I pulled from Windows 11, the Windows 11 boot image. So, it'll be mostly compatible with most desktops. It'll have the drivers already there. For my install images, I've got quite a few operating systems loaded already. All the way back from Vista, coming all the way through Windows 11, and the server 2012 up to server 2022. So what I'm going to do is get this shut down. I'm gonna get it connected to my switches, get the DHCP transfer over, and then I want to test deploying an operating system across the network to one of my PCs and check the performance of this server. So let's get that shut down real quick and we will get it hooked up and tested. Okay, so one thing I wanted to show you guys before I got this hooked up, I did kind of piece together a makeshift top cover for this. Basically, this is just more cardboard, and I covered it in Gorilla Tape to make it somewhat waterproof. But basically, I designed to where I can just slide it on and off in case I needed to get to anything. Okay, there we go. Now, I did cut in ports to the side of this top case to allow me access to everything. So there's the back panel, the back ports. I did bring it down low enough to get a little bit of airflow in the bottom. Of course, there's that second solid state drive. Of course, over here, this is technically the front, so I cut out a spot for the 2 USB ports. And here's the power button. Now, it sits back there a pretty good bit. Basically, got to get something shoved in there to power it on, which is perfect with me. Perfect perfect by me because this way nothing will accidentally hit that power button there. I got a little slit cut out this side just for the CPU heatsink and fan, so so it'll have a exhaust port. But I still need to get some kind of mesh or dust filter to put over the top of this, something to allow adequate airflow for the fan, but just keep the dust and anything else away from dropping down in there and breaking anything. But once I come across something suitable for that, I may get online and see if I can find some kind of fan cover, dust cover, and go ahead and just get something ordered for it. But like I said, let's go ahead and get this thing hooked up and tested. Alright guys, so I've gotten everything up and running, went ahead and got everything configured off camera, just because there were some settings and configurations I didn't want to really be out in the public. But I got this thing installed. I've got it wired up to my switches. So I got one port to this switch and the secondary port to this switch as kind of load balancing. One of these days I'll go over my network configuration, but it's another time. But anyway, this thing's been up and running for a few days now. I've been testing, playing with it. And the more I stare at this thing, the less I like how it looks sitting in this specific spot. So at some point I'm going to find a little bit better spot for this thing. I'm not even sure if I want to keep this top enclosure on it, but that's for another time. But for right now, what I really want to do is test the Windows deployment services. Now, I do have a PC set up to test that with. It's an old Dell, so fourth generation i7. I'm just gonna run a quick test. I'm gonna start the deployment, start getting Windows installed on it, and then we will take a look at the actual server itself to check the network and CPU load on that to make sure it's not getting overwhelmed, basically. Let's dive into it. Okay, let's get into the boot menu and initiate network boot on this. Alright, onboard NIC. Give it a second to find the server and pull the boot image. There it goes. I'm going to install Windows. Alright. So I'm going to log in with my domain admin account. Alright, and as you can tell, I've already got a handful of images on here. I just noticed my Windows 8.1 image is in a different language, so I don't have to go back and correct that. Anyway, with this being an older machine, we can only go up to Windows 10, which is what I'm going to put on here. I'm not going to be able to put Windows 11 on there unless I manually tweak some settings, the system requirement settings on Windows 11 to get that to force it on here. But we won't go back to Windows 10 for now. I previously had Windows 10 on here before, just doing some testing, so let's just make it easy and go back with it. So we're going to delete the existing, install the existing partitions, kick off the install, and once it connects and once everything starts installing and downloading, we will switch over to the server and check the performance on it. Verify that it starts here. Let's see. Alright, there we go. Alright, let's switch over to the server. As you can tell from the task manager here, it is utilizing both of the network interfaces from the server. It is load balancing those connections, as you can tell. The CPU utilization is practically non-existent, which is great.
it's not using too much more memory than it would be just sitting here idling. Here's my WDS configuration window here, and what you see back here's my DHCP configs. But that's the main reason I got the server up and running, is for WDS and imaging. Now I may go with something a little more robust in the future, something other than Windows Deployment Services. But for now, this will do. If you guys have any questions, like I said, feel free to leave a comment, like, subscribe. I hope you guys enjoy the video, and hope you come back for the future videos.